So good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Vital Conversations, Dialogues on Living and Dying Well. I'm your host, Kim Adams. And for those of you that are new, welcome. And those of you that have joined us on other episodes, welcome back. We're in for a real treat tonight. And before we get started with that, let me just, for those of you that aren't familiar with you, just do a little intro of myself, and then we'll do some housekeeping, and we will jump right in to having a dialogue with our wonderful guest tonight. So again, I'm Kim Adams, and I'm an end-of-life coach. I work with families and individuals and small groups doing advanced care planning, and I'm also a hospice volunteer. So I support people through the journey, as I like to say, to create the final chapter. Be the author of their final chapter. And it's never too soon to begin that conversation. And we'll touch a little bit on that tonight because my guest, her organization also does some of that work. And I feel that there's so many organizations and individuals out there doing this end-of-life work that it's just wonderful. There's no competition because there's so many of us in the world that some people resonate with one person or an organization. So I really feel that as much as we can get the word out there to encourage people to begin to talk about death and dying and end of life and grief and loss. That's one of the reasons why I've started the Vital Conversations a year ago, this series. So it's a little bit about me, just some housekeeping. You will see on the right-hand side of your screen, there's a chat function. That's your way to communicate with Marie and I tonight. So go ahead now and just type in where you're listening from. We have a number of people from at least 3 countries that I'm aware of, so it's great to see that we are worldwide. So go ahead and just type in and say hi where you're listening in from. We are live, so this is live technology, and anything can happen. We're crossing our fingers that there's no issues tonight, but if Marie or I get dropped off, we will get back on as soon as possible. If you have any problems, the audio or the video freezes, probably the best thing to do is just refresh your browser. There also is at the bottom of your screen, I think you could just click in where it says, refresh. If you're still having problems, then I would suggest I put a sticky note in the chat to go to the YouTube channel where this is also being broadcast live. So you can watch it there. And if you want to make some comments or questions, just go ahead and come back here, type them in, and then you can watch it again on YouTube. So I see that people are starting to type in, which is excellent. So welcome. Welcome, Rebecca from Montana, and we have Lisa from Ontario, Canada, and Myra from Sacramento, California, and Cynthia from Tucson. And then we have, let me see here, from Minneapolis. Can't quite see the name, but I'm sure. Oh, there we go. We have, they're coming in so fast and furious. We have Bobby from Minnesota. And we have Robin from Denver. We have Ashland, Oregon, Diana. We have Leslie from Boston. So great, welcome. And people will continue to kind of come in. So this is fantastic. So let's get started with the meat of our dialogue tonight. So I want to welcome and give a proper introduction to Marie Manis. Marie Manis is the Massachusetts Campaign Director for Compassion and Choices. And she's been with Compassion and Choices for the past 3.5 years, first supporting the Dignity Ballot Initiative campaign in 2012, and since then managing the statewide legislative and educational campaign. Marie has been a community activist on social, health, and economic issues dating back to the 1960s. She's managed campaigns within the labor movement, university movements, and community organizations. Like many, she's witnessed uninformed and unsupported end-of-life situations surrounded by denial and extraordinary measures. She strongly believes that information, support, taking it all out of the closet, which is great because that's what we're doing these webinars, and providing choices at the end of life is a basic human right and a critical piece of living and dying healthy. So welcome, Marie.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim.
It's great to have you here.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So tonight we're going to be talking about compassion and choices and some of the pieces to that. Before we get started, though, let's just let me put the camera back on me here. Let's just hear a little bit about just kind of your story, and initially, how did you get into working with Compassionate Choices?
Okay, it was actually purely by accident. This was not an issue that was on my radar. But I certainly had done much advocacy work in my life, around economic issues, housing, healthcare. And when this came my way back in June of 2012, this little light bulb went off, and it was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Because I, like everybody else, had death in the closet. I mean, I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to acknowledge that was going to happen to me or to anyone else that I knew. And it was a real, as I said, it was a light bulb moment. And I thought, yeah, this is really a human rights issue. This makes total sense. One should have that choice. If one is terminally ill and, going through unbearable suffering and they're dying, why not have the choice of having a peaceful ending? So I started out with we were the Compassionate Choices, was actually the boots on the ground for the Dignity campaign back in 2012. And we came so close. In fact, statewide, the polls were 68% in support of aid in dying or death with dignity. And the last 3 weeks of the campaign, we were outspent something like 5 or 6 to 1 in the airwaves, with just very distorted ads on the TV that frightened people. And we still lost by only 2 points. We lost by 46,000 votes out of 2.8 million cast. So we went forward with a legislative campaign. But let me save all of that for later.
Okay, great.
And just I'd like to give an overall picture of Compassionate Choices and the work that we do.
Perfect.
Okay, great, thank you. So we are actually the leading nonprofit organization dedicated to improving care and expanding choice at the end of life. And, we work to change attitudes and practices and policies so that everyone has the information and the options that they need in order to have the best death, the best ending and comfort that they can have at the end of their lives. So, with that, the first thing we say, like everything else in our lives, we plan. If we want to buy a house, we plan for it. If we want to get an education, we plan for it. Oops. If we want to, I don't know what happened, but some weird stuff was happening. If you want a particular career, we have to make plans. So this is something that we stress, to really make your plans. And we have a whole slew of resources online. And one of the things that we suggest, and I'll just show you, is because I think that it's easy for many of us to say, I don't want any extraordinary measures. Anything happens to me, I don't want any extraordinary measures. But I don't think that any of us could really sit down and define what that means. So what we have is something called a Good to Go guide. And, you can download this from our website. And it really walks you through what your values are. And we encourage, to sit down with a family member, someone you're close to, and walk through what are my values, what really matters to me. And, once you're clear on that, then you can download the advance directive for your state. And you can complete an advance directive. You can choose your healthcare proxy and a backup, an alternate healthcare proxy. And when you complete all those documents, you still, and we encourage you to revisit it every 5 years, because we change all the time. What I may want today may be different 5 years from now. So on our website, we have an end-of-life information center, and all this material is in both Spanish and English. We have the Good to Go guide, the state-specific advance directives, frequently asked questions about aid in dying states. And then we also have this, Your Life, Your Priorities. I don't know if you can see that.
Yes, we can see that. Yes.
And you can download this booklet, and it really just walks you through all the information that you need so that, you're prepared. You made a plan for how you want the end of your life to be. And that's a biggie. I mean, that's something that, in our culture, this is something we never did, we never talked about. When I have little advanced directive workshops and I'm dealing with people that are in their 70s and 80s, and I say, how many people have filled out an advanced directive? Half of the hands go up,
Mm.
the other half don't. How many people have healthcare proxies? Again, half the hands go up. Do you have an alternate healthcare proxy? Usually no. Well, the healthcare proxy may not be around when you need them,
Right.
So you need to have an alternate. And sometimes you don't necessarily want the person that's closest to you because it may be hard for them to acknowledge and honor your wishes.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's like really know that it's someone that really, you can trust that they will honor your wishes, even if your wishes are not exactly what they want for you.
Great.
So that's one arm of our organization, which I think is really critical for all of us to get this information, understand it, and make plans for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Another arm of our organization is legal. We do a lot of legal work. You may recall the case of Barbara Mancini about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. She's a nurse that lives in Pennsylvania, and her father, her 93, 94-year-old father, was in hospice care. This is a gentleman who was very dignified and was very clear about his end-of-life wishes. He didn't want anything, he just wanted to go peacefully.
Mm.
And he was at home in hospice care. Barbara was visiting with him, and he asked for his morphine, his prescribed morphine. She opened the bottle, handed it to him. He drank it, and the hospice nurse came in, and he was rushed to the hospital and spent 4 days going through all kinds of treatments that he did not want.
Mm.
And Barbara was charged with assisting a suicide. He died, by the way, 4 days later, but with an ending that he never wanted. And she was charged with, aiding or assisting a suicide. And, we worked, on that case with others. And finally, a year later, the Attorney General dropped the charges because there wasn't, any real evidence. But just to have to go through that, hard enough to lose your father and to lose him in a way that you knew he didn't want to die. And then to have this charge, it was just horrible for the family. So, we really, work on cases that really make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And then she actually, came out and spoke. She has spoken many times on behalf of, the work that we do, because, she saw how important it was, to have that kind of law in your state.
Mm-hmm.
So that nothing like that would ever happen to a family member or anyone.
Great.
So that's an arm of our organization. Another is that we do, we advocate for policies on the federal level. We do a lot of work around, delivery of person-centered care. There's a real focus now of, person-centered care and family-oriented care. And that's been a shift, in our, in our society, in the medical profession. Also educating our physicians, because our physicians are not educated around this. So they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to talk about it. Medicare recently passed wonderfully. They recently passed a law, I'm not exactly sure it's a law, however it is, where physicians are now paid to talk about end of life with people. That was never the case before, but they need to be trained how to talk about end of life, because most physicians don't know how, they really don't, and they acknowledge that they don't.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a real focus on trying to, on working on the federal level to make those changes, to stop unwanted medical treatment, as in the case of Barbara Mancini's father and many other people.
Mm.
And the other arm of our organization is Aid in Dying, medical aid in dying, or death with dignity. And going back, maybe a year and a half or 2 years, it was, we have medical aid in dying, and it's authorized in 5 states.
Okay.
It's authorized in Oregon since 1997, and in Washington since I think it's 2009. And both of that was through ballot initiative. It's authorized in Montana through by judicial rule looking at the Constitution. In Vermont, as of not 2 summers ago, so it's almost 3 years now that it's been authorized in Vermont through the legislative process. And then this past summer, it was passed in California through the legislative process and signed by the governor. And the shift that happened is that I'm sure you're familiar, and probably many of your guests tonight are familiar with the Brittany Menard case, which was November of 2014. And she was a young woman, 29 years old, living in the state of California, and she was diagnosed with a brain tumor, very aggressive glioblastoma, very aggressive cancer. And it was clear to her what the ending was going to look like. And there was not aid in dying in California. And so she did something that most people can't do. They don't have the resources, or, are not able. She took her mother and her husband and her brother-in-law, I believe, and her mother's husband, and they moved to Oregon, which is a state that has authorized aid in dying for the past 17, almost 18 years. And she reached out to Compassion and Choices, and she said, I want this to be available in every state, and I'm going to do whatever I can from now until my end, the end of my life, so that I can raise awareness around the country. And she did that, and it really changed this from a state-by-state issue to a nationwide movement.
Mm.
And California is sorry, I don't know if you're getting all that noise that I was just getting.
No.
Oh, okay. I was just getting a whole lot of noise.
Oh dear. Okay.
Anyway, so she, there it goes again. Anyhow, so she, that changed everything. And her husband and her mother really lobbied, in California, because she called the governor before she passed, and she said, I want this bill to go forward, and I want you to sign it. And California moved forward in 8 months. It was unbelievable. And even the medical profession in California, the California Medical Association, that has opposed aid in dying for decades now, actually withdrew their opposition, and they said this is between doctor and patient. They decided to take a neutral stance on it. So it passed, and actually I want to read the last line of Governor Jerry Brown's letter, because I just feel it, he just says it so well. He says, he discussed this with many people, and he says, I do not know, in the end, he said, after discussing it with, the Brittany Menard's family and former classmates, and in the face of my own death.
Marie, you're freezing.
I'm freezing?
Yes.
Is that better? What's happening?
Yeah, I think it's maybe a bandwidth issue, but it might be okay. You're back.
Okay. I'm back. Okay.
Yeah.
So did you hear any of what I read?
No.
Okay. So at the end of his letter, after he says he consulted with many people, He says, in the end, I was left to reflect on what I would want in the face of my own death. I do not know what I would do if I were dying in prolonged and excruciating pain. I am certain, however, that it would be a comfort to be able to consider the options afforded by this bill, and I wouldn't deny that right to others. I
Mm,
just feel like that's such a powerful and such a true statement, that regardless of where we might be and what we might want, we don't have the right. I don't believe we have the right to deny that basic human right to others.
mhm.
And since Brittany Menard's passing, 26 states have introduced aid in dying bills, which is amazing. You
Wow.
know.
Wow. It's definitely a movement, right? I mean, I think that
Yes.
it's definitely moving forward. So you just shared a tremendous amount of extremely valuable information. So for the listeners and those that I see have popped in, thank you. We have some more people from Massachusetts, and we're going to talk
Oh,
specifically
great.
about things that
Good.
they can do as well as we move forward. But just let me just recap quickly that Compassionate Choices is a nonprofit national organization, right? They've been around for over 30 years, and the components that Marie spoke about in terms of the education and the resources and the federal um, legislative pieces that they do. And then a big piece tonight will be around the Death with Dignity law, because it is become such a movement now, and especially thanks to Brittany Menard. And then the states that Marie mentioned now, where it is legal, and through various either legislative or other bills and things like that. So again, just to kind of give everyone a sense, but it's a tremendous organization, and I'm going to be popping in the website also, so you can go there, and there's plenty more of resources. So just know that that's kind of just a beautiful. Marie just kind of just shared so much information, so I just kind of wanted to pull that together. And now let's get back and talk, because this is really an important piece about the kind of the Death with Dignity or the medical aid in dying bill. So go ahead, Marie.
Okay, I just want to add one piece about the website. When you go to the website, if you drop down where it says, what can I do? You can go to your state and you can look at all the states and see where they are, whether they're actively, in legislation, whether there's a campaign going on, whether there's, whether it's authorized in that state. So, that's something that it's a pretty picture too, to look and see all these states that have introduced legislation. In fact, just last week in Colorado, the we had a bill, and it was in the Judiciary Committee, and it passed the Judiciary Committee.
Mm,
So, that's another step. I mean, with these, and we're here in Massachusetts, our bill is in the Joint Public Health Committee. And we had a hearing back in October, and we had a turnout of nearly 200 supporters, and probably, I think there were, not everyone got a chance to testify, but we had 34 people lined up to testify. And even though not everyone had a chance to do it because there were so many people at the hearing, all of the legislators on the committee did get copies of their testimony. So where we are right now is March 16th is the final day for committees to report out with bills. So our work now is to encourage, the committee members, the chairs, first of all, to encourage the chairs to bring it out for a favorable vote.
mhm.
And then to encourage the legislators on the committee to support it. So we're working with our, grassroots supporters across the state, encouraging them to reach out to their legislators, to the committee members, if they're in the district of the committee members, and to urge, those members to urge the chairs to bring it up for a vote.
Mm-hmm. And so what can people here in Massachusetts do to support that, or people from other states that have family or friends here in Massachusetts to support that?
Well, people that are in districts with the that the Public Health Committee members are in can reach out directly to their legislator, if their legislator is on the Public Health Committee, and encourage that person to support the bill, and to ask the chair or urge the chair to bring it up for a vote, because the chair can decide, as they did in 2013, to not bring it up for a vote, to just table the bill or send it to study, which basically means to table it for the session. And so our work and our goal is to get this bill out of committee. So if you are in Massachusetts and you're in a district, or you have friends in the districts where the Public Health Committee members are, urge them to reach out. Because legislators want to hear from their constituents. I mean, you're the people that vote for them or not, vote them in or vote them out. So those are the people they want to hear from. I can meet with a legislator, our lobbyists can meet with legislators, but the bottom line is they want to hear from you. They want to hear from the people who vote for them.
And so really, we're talking about providing an option for people as one additional option that people would have at the end of their life. So it's not saying that, if this is not something you support, but to be able to have it as an option for individuals to have that choice, because at the end of our lives, all of us should be able to, as you said earlier, to be able to have a choice in how they want the end of their life to look. That's what we're speaking about, yes?
Right. What the bill covers, and it pretty much follows the Oregon model, which is if you are terminally ill diagnosed by two physicians with 6 months or less to live, and that's the hospice definition, 6 months or less to live, then you would be eligible to request a prescription from your physician so that you can have a peaceful ending. And there are many safeguards in the bill. I mean, this is not about, I heard someone say, oh, so you just go in, they tell you you have 6 months, or you can, just get a prescription. It's not that simple. There are many safeguards. You have to be the one requesting it. You have to go through the process of, two physicians, plus an evaluation, by a counselor. And you have to make the request verbally, and then you have to make it again in writing, and it has to be witnessed by two people. So it's not a simple process, but we see it as an extension of palliative care. It's like everything. I have a friend who about 6 weeks ago lost her mother. She lives in Connecticut, and her mother was in hospice care at home, and they could not find a medication that would work for her mother. She said they would give her something, she would conk out for an hour, and then she was up screaming and yelling all night long. She was up and down yelling. And this went on for a month. And here it is 6 weeks later. My friend Peggy is still having nightmares. Her mother died like 6 weeks ago. And she said, Marie, I just felt like I didn't know what I could do for her. It was such a horrible ending. She said hospice did everything that they could. But they kept adjusting the medication, and whatever it was, she was not able to come to some peaceful place. And sometimes that's true for people, suffering, is very different for each person. And sometimes medication doesn't work. And for someone to have the option, if they choose it, if they don't choose it, they don't have to have it. But to have the option there it gives, in fact, in Oregon, a third of the people that make this request don't even fill their prescriptions. And it just gives them peace of mind knowing that there is an option. I don't have to suffer at the end. And that seems to sometimes have people last longer, live longer and feel better. So,
I've actually heard that, yes.
Yeah.
Once people, make a decision like that, wow, there's a relief. It's like, okay, now I can continue on knowing that that is an option if I should choose it. And I think that's the piece that's really important, is that it's a choice that people can make. And it may be a choice that is important to me, but not to you or to someone else, but to allow the opportunity that there is that choice. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. As I said, I think, Governor Jerry Brown put it exactly right. He said, I don't know if I would, use that choice. I just, would not want to stop anyone else who wanted it.
Yeah. Now, Marie, I hear one of the arguments or one of the pieces is, and maybe this is a myth, let's talk about some myths around this, but that they're equating the medical aid in dying with suicide. So speak a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah, it's really, it is so far off the track. Medical aid in dying is for people who are dying from their disease. They are dying anyway, and all they're doing is choosing a peaceful way to die. Suicide, and they're doing it with the support, of their family, of their physician, and they're out in the open about it. It's not something they're hiding. I mean, suicide is cutting a life short. Generally, it's done hidden. People are, people don't go to their families and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I mean, it's such a different thing. People are desperate when they commit suicide. And it's very sad because they're often mentally disturbed and, very depressed and what have you. But it's such a different thing. And to equate the two is, it's sad that people do that. And I think that started out with, the opposition years ago started calling it assisted suicide, and that has stuck, but it has been changing, and people are recognizing that they are two very, very different things.
Great. Are there other myths around medical aid in dying? Are there other things that are floating out there that people are kind of latching onto that maybe aren't accurate or is misinformation?
Well, I mean, I think that, certainly if you, I think that people are getting educated on the issue. Certainly if any of your guests have a specific question, I'm happy to answer it.
Yes.
But I think that, people are understanding it in a way. As I said, in 2012, when I first started, talking with people and doing workshops across the state, people weren't even talking about death.
Right.
Never mind aid in dying. So that has expanded so much. Last year there was a poll done here in Massachusetts, and more than 70% of the people support aid, voters support aid in dying. And this crosses all lines. This crosses ethnic, this crosses race, this crosses religion, this crosses disabilities. People are beginning to really understand what it is, and that it's not, no one's going to come after you and make you do this. And no one has the right to, your healthcare proxy cannot do this for you. You have to be able to do this for yourself. You have to be able to self-administer the medication yourself. You have to make the request yourself. So people are really beginning to understand it, and I think many of the older myths that were around are falling away.
Yeah, I know I've heard a lot about, especially in the disabled community, people are saying, this is a slippery slope, and people, are going to be forcing individuals. And as you just shared, that in fact is not the case.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's not, and there's no way that it could be.
Yeah, great. Well, certainly to everyone listening in, type in any questions, comments that you have. Marie is a wealth of information here that can really set the record straight and to, get some clear information in terms of any questions or comments you have. So let's see, we do have something here from Pashta up in Canada. So welcome. She says, I prefer MAID, medical aid in dying. I don't want my doctor anywhere near me when I die. In fact, their only role is to provide the medical aid of a prescription. They do not actually assist you directly. Therefore, I feel that physician-assisted dying focuses too much on the physician.
Yeah, good term. It is. We are referring it more and more as medical aid in dying. I think she's absolutely, Pasha, I think you're absolutely right. It is medical aid in dying. It's not a physician-assisted dying. So I think you're right on with that. And you say, like many people say, gee, when I'm dying, my doctor is not the person I want near me. It's the people I love that I want near
Right.
me.
Right.
No one says, "Oh, where's my doctor?" I want my doctor in the room with me to hold my hand. We want the people that we love, whoever they may be, to be with us in those final moments.
Great, great. So go ahead and type in any questions or comments. We have a good number of people here tonight, so that indicates to me that this is an issue that you want to hear more about, or that you have some questions or comments about. So definitely feel free to connect with us via the chat. So
Okay. And I want to read off some of the organizations that support this. Medical organizations, the healthcare organizations that do recognize medical aid in dying. One is, as I said, the California Medical Association, that has 40,000 members, has taken a neutral position on this. The American Medical Students Association, that has over 30,000 members, supports medical aid in dying. The American Public Health Association, with over 50,000 members, supports medical aid in dying. The American Medical Women's Association, the American Academy of Legal Medicine, all support aid in dying. And let's see what this says. Okay, this one is too long for me to read. But, there are many, well-recognized medical associations that support aid in dying. And, again, as I said, it's just becoming more, we just see it as on the spectrum of, healthcare options.
Yeah. Great. We have a question from Leslie that says, you said that the person has to take the drugs themselves. What about in the case where the patient is unable to do that physically?
Well, unfortunately, this bill doesn't cover everyone. And if, there are people that, like if you're in late stages of ALS or some disease like that, you're not able to take the medicine by yourself. And you would not be eligible for this, it covers a limited number of people. And it would not cover a person who is not able to self-administer the medication. And the reason for that is, you run the risk then, if someone else can give you the medication, then you run the risk of the slippery slope, which is, did the person take it willingly or did someone force them to take it? So it doesn't cover everyone.
And I would venture to guess that that's similar to someone with dementia or Alzheimer's that is not able to consent to that?
Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah, you would not be. Now, we do have a dementia provision on our website that when you go and download documents, and basically that says, feed myself. I don't want to be fed. If I'm not able to recognize people, I don't want, it's just basic, simple things, but you can have a conversation with your doctor and say, if I'm in that state, then these are things that I don't want you to do for me. But no, it would not cover people. You have to be of sound mind. Right. That's very clear. You have to be mentally competent is the expression that is written in the bills.
Great. And similar to that, Posture writes that in Canada, they're working toward advanced consent for people who end up with dementia or other similar conditions. And over 80% of the Canadians actually agree with that. Great. Wow. Yeah, sometimes Canada's a few steps ahead of us, right, Marie?
Yeah, sometimes they are.
Maybe more than a few. Great. Other questions and comments, people, type them in. Here's your opportunity to get some correct information. What else do you have to share for us, Marie?
Okay, let me see. Let's see what other good stuff I have to share. Well, certainly, I can't speak enough about our bill and how This is, in 2013, we had introduced the bill after the ballot initiative, and we had 15 co-sponsors on the bill. Again, we had a great turnout at the hearing and great testimony. The chair of the committee was, strongly opposed, and the bill did not get voted out of committee. It went to study. But this time around, and again, I would say that it's because of the, Brittany Menard story and what she's done, to help this movement along. We now have 39 co-sponsors on our bill. Now that's huge, that's like triple, almost triple of what we had. And I think that there's much more receptivity at the State House. When I talk to legislators, I just feel like there's much more receptivity than there was. And also the places that I get invited to speak, I just feel there's more of an openness, at the different organizations that I get invited to come and make a presentation about aid and dying.
Great.
Yeah.
What's your sense that's happening kind of with other states? Are things moving along as well?
They are moving along. As I said, Colorado just moved out of the Judiciary Committee. New Hampshire actually passed it in June or July, but the governor refused to sign it.
Okay.
So, again, if people go to the website and they go to the state, it says, what can I do? And if you go to the states, you'll see the stage for each state where things stand. New Jersey, New York is moving forward very quickly, actually. And New Jersey, I think it passed the assembly. And there's so many states. I'm trying to keep track.
Yes.
Trying to keep track of Massachusetts.
Right.
But I know it moved out of the assembly in New Jersey, and then I'm not sure what the stage is right now. But it's moving along in many different states. As I said, it was introduced in 26 states this past year, 2015.
Okay.
So, and that was 26 states. It's moving forward, and it's different stages in each state.
Great. Well, I'll certainly put the link back up again and encourage people to go if they're interested to check out, what's happening in their state and where things are. We do have another question here. We have a question from Jacqueline that says, you mentioned aid in dying has to be approved by 2 physicians. Are these of a patient's choice? Or is there a list of doctors that, that patients are given to choose from?
No, what happened, it would be your own doctor. But what happens because not every doctor is willing to do this. So once it's authorized in a state, once the law is authorized in a state, little by little, doctors come on board and say that they're willing. And more doctors, when it first passed in Oregon, it took quite a while for doctors to say, I'm willing to write a prescription. But as time goes on, more and more doctors are recognizing that this is just, in fact, I've had doctors say, we've done this in the past, we just did it differently, under the table kind of thing. So, so it would be your doctor, and generally, if someone is terminally ill, they probably have an oncologist as well as their primary care doctor. So it's whoever your doctors are. Now, if your doctors are not willing, to write such a prescription, then they are required to refer you to someone who would be willing.
Great. So we have a great question here from Barbara. Says, Marie, do you speak at organizations locally in Massachusetts?
I do, and you're welcome to invite me.
Great.
What is your organization?
Okay, great. Yeah, Barbara, type in what you're thinking of, or an organization that you'd love for her to come to. Okay. All right. So what a fantastic conversation this has been. As we we'll give Barbara a chance, and anyone else, now's your time to pop in any questions, any comments. Has this been helpful for you? Where do people... Go ahead.
Okay. Let me show you our magazine while people are thinking about what they want to type in. This is our winter magazine. We have a new one coming out next month, actually. And it's a great magazine. It just has a wealth of information about what we do and what we're about. And, there's an article in here of how Brittany Menard changed the landscape. Death with Dignity bills spread all across the country. So it's a good read.
Great. And can people, I think you can subscribe to Compassionate Choices, yes, and get information online, get information via email from them?
Yes, you can, in your state, you can sign up. You can go to the website and sign up in your state, and you'll get regular emails.
Great, great. Do we want to share your email? Do you want people to go to the Compassionate Choices or your personal Compassionate Choices email?
They can go to Compassionate Choices.
Okay.
CompassionateChoices.org, and they can certainly, email me at my personal email, which is mmanus@CompassionateChoices.org.
Great, and I'll put that also here, and that will also be in the replay email for people. You'll be able to have Marie's contact information as well. So
great.
Let me put that. So Marie, what is Pasha saying? Canadians get Compassionate Choices too. It's great.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Super. Great.
Yay, Canada.
Yay, Canada. Great. Good. Okay. So it doesn't look like any more questions or comments at this point. So is there...
Let me see if there's anything else that I might add that might be helpful.
Great.
Let me see. Usually I get a million questions,
Yes. We have a quiet group tonight. There's a lot of them, but we have a quiet group. One more, Brian. Is that a question, Brian, you have? He says one more. Go ahead and type in. We'll stick around.
What's your question, Brian?
Brian says, can this choice be added into living wills?
No.
Okay.
No. Again, this is something that has to be requested by the patient, and the patient has to be terminal with 6 months or less to live. So you can't do any kind of advanced planning, and add this into a living will or advance directive or, anything like that. And again, and this is a safeguard that protects you. It protects everyone really, but it certainly protects the patient.
Great, good question. And there's a question from Pashta, another question saying, do hospices allow medical aid in dying in their facilities?
To the best of my knowledge, they, I know that in Oregon, 94% of the people that choose aid in dying are in hospice care. Now, whether they're in hospice care at home or hospice care in a facility, I don't really know the answer to that, but I can certainly check it out and find out. But, they definitely, I know that they are in hospice care, about 94% of the people, because we get a report. Every year, the Department of Public Health in the state of Oregon puts out a report on aid in dying in Oregon, and, with all kinds of statistics. And that's one of the statistics, that about 94% of the people are in hospice care.
Great. And Compassionate Choices, let's see, Lisa asked the question, do you know of any organizations in Canada that are similar to yours?
I'm afraid I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Does Compassionate Choices have any piece in Canada?
We don't. No,
Okay.
we're throughout the United States, and
Okay.
again, if you go to our website, you'll see, that we're throughout the United States, and you can download anything that would apply to you even in Canada, but certainly the advanced directives and that kind of thing would not apply for you in Canada.
Okay. Well, and Pashta just see, this is what I love about this community here. Pashta says she gave an answer to Lisa. It says Dying with Dignity Canada is their major Canadian organization. So great, Lisa. Thank you,
Okay.
Pashta, for that.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah, yeah.
Super, super. And so Diana says in Oregon, if the person who seeks death with dignity physician does not participate, he is not mandated to find you one. Ah,
Is that a question or is that
that's
no?
is that accurate information?
No, if your physician does not participate,
Right.
they, to the best of my knowledge, they are required to refer you.
Okay. Okay, great. See, this is good. We don't want misinformation floating out there. So,
Yeah, I mean, I will double check that, but that's my understanding. I know that's how we have it written in other bills, and I know that we use Oregon as that's kind of our gold, you know, our gold state, and that's the guideline that we use. So I'm trusting that that's true in Oregon as well.
right. Great. Super.
Oh, she says no, they're not required.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay. Well, again, that's where compassion and choices, can be helpful to people because, we know the physicians that do, that are willing to participate, so that one is always, able to call our resource center and get that kind of information.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, the advocacy piece is, huge. And, we don't want to forget all the other arms, so to speak, or the components that Compassion and Choices provides, the legislative and the supportive and the education and resources. So,
Right. And the education is a huge piece. I mean, we do education around, just all kinds of, end of life, hospice care. I mean, we do a lot of education. And that's a very big piece of the work I do and the work that we do organizationally.
Super. This has been
And
great.
we have great advocates across the state. I mean, I can tell you that the numbers of people that have become active in the last few years is, right across the state and all the regions here in Massachusetts is quite amazing.
Great. Well, yes, we're kind of beginning to come up to the top of the hour. Thank you so much. This has been great engagement here. Anne says thank you so much for the informative webinar. Thank you, Anne, for being here, and everyone else that has joined us. So just before we go, Marie, just any parting words that you want to share with the listeners?
Well, I just want to say I want to thank everyone for coming on and listening and for asking the questions that they did. I think it's great. I mean, I love the interaction. And I've never done a webinar before, so
yes, this is her first one. I think she did pretty good. What do you guys think?
I'm used to having people in front of me ask questions, so this is a little bit different. But I thank all of you, and thank you, Kim. I think it was a great opportunity for me to share about compassion and choices and the work that we do.
Super. Well, thank you, Marie, for, this is valuable information. And again, just a shout out, I'm here in Massachusetts as well. So my fellow Massachusetts folks that are on the listening in tonight, check out what's happening here. And, as Marie said, things are coming up in the legislative piece. So that's something that we can support. So again, just a big thank you, Marie, and to everyone that was here tonight. Thank you so much. I have not solidified my guest for March, but we're leaning toward a woman who actually is kind of a consumer advocate for funeral homes and the whole funeral home process, which can be very difficult for people. And, she really just has a whole host of resources and website information that she really supports people to go through that process. So trying to solidify a date with that, but you'll all get the information around that. And again, just so appreciate all of you coming out. one more step that we're taking to kind of bring death and dying and end of life and choices, out into the open, as Marie said, so that we can have more conversations about it. So once again, thank you, everyone. Bobby is clapping. Thank you, Bobby.
Yeah, I know. Thank you all.
Great.
What a great group. Thank you.
Super.
This has been a great opportunity.
Super. Yes. Well, and again, a big thank you to everyone, and look forward to seeing you next month. Take care, everyone.
Okay.
Good night.